welcome to another episode of The Creators Outlet, brought to you by our friends over at the Inc. marketing team. Over 35 years in the business. If you need a little help on your Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or any other project, whether it's creating more viewers for your channels or getting your comic book, out of the starting gate, contact our friends over at Inc. Marketing. Right now, we'd like to welcome Adam from socialstudiescomic.com.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So where did this whole idea come from?
This idea has actually been cooking with us. I do the comic with a really good friend of mine. We met when we were 14 years old, and we actually met through his drawing. And we kind of were using characters that he came up with, added some more since I met him. And we would draw comics. This is back in 1999. But it was not like written, produced, colored. We were doing Bic pen, school notebooks, passing time while we should have been paying attention. And just kind of did it for fun between our friends. And then, life takes you on different paths and stuff. And we always stayed in touch. We always stayed good friends. And the comic idea kind of came and went. And then a couple of years ago, I had a really boring desk job. I started to get really into writing. And I wrote a full-on script for what became our first issue. It's a little bit different now. And I sent it to him and I said, hey, do you want to make like a real once and for all go at this? And that's the version that you see now.
Cool. Yeah, I got to read that one earlier, and I was entertained. It was fun, well thought out, goofy because it's high school.
Yeah.
And it had the upperclassmen picking on the freshmen, and the snobby crazy girls and all the social media angst going on. I'm like, wow, man, I'm glad I'm not in high school anymore.
That's what we say while we write it.
I'm like, so it's like a really fun read. And does it stay kind of like in that all ages genre?
Yeah, we're keeping it. The equivalent would be like a PG-13 rating. We don't go too hard on things. Mm-hmm. We use the cartoon swearing asterisks for effect sometimes, but we try not to lean on that as like a joke. We want it to be accessible to people who are maybe coming up on high school or just started high school. We're not going for shock value in this. It's also, we take a lot of inspiration because we were, born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, and that was like the era of Nicktoons and, the X-Men cartoon and things like that. So we took a lot of the inspiration for those, which are kind of all ages, just fun.
Yeah, well, I was born basically in the 70s and grew up in the 80s, so it's kind of like an overlap.
Yeah, for sure.
I was actually working in a comic book store watching the 90s X-Men cartoon when it used to come on every Saturday morning. We never got any work done during the week when the new episodes of Batman the Animated Series would come on. Yep. And then Saturday, Fox had that like huge kids block of, X-Men and
Spider-Man,
and they started airing like the old Hulk cartoons from like the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, yeah.
So we basically just sat around and talked, and we would get all our work done in like the first 3 hours. And,
yeah, you had to hurry so you could watch TV.
And then just pretend to be busy when people came in.
Absolutely.
Like this. Wait for the commercial. So it was kind of like that, So yeah, I guess I never grew up.
Hey, why? If you don't have to.
I was skipping school to work at a comic book store. Then he was like, you can't start work until 3:00 in the afternoon. I go, okay. So I'd show up for homeroom. I'd go out to breakfast, and I'd wait around downtown until the comic book shop opened. I was like, oh, well.
Yeah.
So it's you and your friend that couldn't be here today because of busyness of real world work.
Yeah, he's got a pretty intense schedule, and then at times he can just get called in. So he's Got to do it. He might be able to join us late. I sent him the link and I said pop in if you're able to. So
Yeah, that's cool. I'm fine with that. So, where did your love for comic books first start?
for me as a kid, it was all superheroes. Like I mentioned, that '90s X-Men cartoon, but
Mhm.
in the mid '90s, then it was also a great run of the Uncanny X-Men. Those Marvel trading cards were like everything when I was in elementary school. I mean, even
They
people who
are.
didn't read comics were into
Oh
those.
yeah, they are hot again.
Are they?
I just sold my set for $88.
I should go check my parents' attic.
If you've got a full set, especially if you have like I never got the Spider-Man fighting Green Goblin hologram. That was like the hard one to get. But I got the other four. So I sold those four. I sold the four holograms for $20, and I got like 53 bucks for the set.
No,
You
not
know,
bad.
plus shipping. I'm like, damn! Like a month ago, I couldn't pay somebody to take these away,
Right? Yeah, yeah.
and now I'm like, well, I was sad to see him go because I looked at him again. I go, oh man, these are so cool. What else is cool? Getting $88 to buy more comics. Okay.
Yep. Just move on to the next thing.
And there I went shopping again. I'm like, okay, I got $100 left in my account. What can I buy now? You know.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
did you have a favorite writer at that time?
When I was into comics as a kid, I didn't know the concept of a comic book shop. It wasn't one accessible to me. It was just whatever I could get to on my bike.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the comics that I read, I would ride around in the summer to garage sales and pick them up for, a quarter to $1, whatever they were. So I was always drawn to the X-Men, but I've never been good at the artist writer thing because as a kid, I was into it, but I wasn't into it as like an education, I guess I could say, because I didn't have X-Men, whatever, 70, 71, 72, 73. It would just be like, oh, Wolverine's in this one. I'd buy it for a quarter, and that's the only one they had at the garage sale. So it was a lot more piecemeal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what it was when I was growing up. There were no comic book stores around. There was before CVS bought every single pharmacy in the country.
Yeah.
There was a family-owned, private pharmacy at the very top of my dead-end street. And every Sunday, my mother would say, come on, we're going to the pharmacy. She would go up and pick up her, if she had any prescriptions due, she'd pick those up and grab the big fat Sunday paper for all the coupons. And I, of course, would be excited to read the Spider-Man, newspaper strip, in color on a Sunday. And,
Yep.
if I behaved all week and didn't get in trouble at school, oh boy, and wasn't like bothering her when we were in the pharmacy, being quiet, and she would let me run to the spinner rack in the middle of the store and pick out a book. So the first book I bought that was like a teen book was Legion of Superman and Legion of Superheroes. So I fell in love with that team, and I loved them up until Brian Michael Bendis destroyed that book last year. Go back to Marvel. Leave my books alone. And of course, Batman. I still had the very first issue of Detective Comics that I ever bought. And
nice.
I bought other ones, but this was the first one that I bought with money that I earned, around the neighborhood, shoveling driveways.
You bought. Yeah.
Yeah. Raking leaves for people or, washing their car or whatever. I was always hustling. Why are you always looking for work? You're going to hate it when you get older. And they were right. I hated it when I got older. But
of course, but it's inevitable.
but back then it was like, it wasn't, you're not working all day. You work, even if you're washing somebody's car, you work for like a couple hours. And you'd be all done. And, and you make like a few bucks. You make like a buck or two washing somebody's car, in their driveway, and you immediately jump on your bike and ride up to the corner store and, buy a mitt full of comics, because back then they were like, they were like all under like the most expensive book was like 50 cents. So I'm like, well, I just made $2. I can buy 4 really good books. Ooh, 100-page dollar book. Well,
yeah.
we'll take one of those. And
that's the rest of your day.
And then I'll buy like, 3 30-cent books. And then I'll be looking for like, some petty candies by the register, so I can make sure I spend all $2 that I
right.
So, that was pretty much my story. So I've been reading and collecting comics since 1974. So.
Wow. Yeah. I wish, looking back, that I was a more serious collector, because I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed the stories. I always enjoyed the art. I wish I put it together. Hey, this guy wrote this one that I liked. I should see what else that guy wrote. Or this artist did, Captain America in the way that I really like. I should follow him. I just, for some reason, that didn't come until like early high school, really. Another friend of mine, not the one I'm doing this comic with, but another friend who was big into reading comics, would be like, oh, hey, we're going 2 towns over to the comic book store. Let's go. Oh, so-and-so drew that one. You should also check this, and this out. And he kind of gave me that education to jumpstart it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, at first, I wasn't paying attention to the names. I was like, great art, love the characters, and, my first exposure to anything like superheroes, I was 3 years old. My mother put the TV on after I ate breakfast, and Adam West and Burt Ward came on in the glitz and glam of the Batman 66 show. And
yep.
First person I saw him fighting with was the Joker. And ever since then, who's your favorite villain? Oh, I don't know. It could be Joker. I would still like, if it wasn't for the fact that, Marvel and DC are owned by, evil corporations besides themselves. I would have liked to see like an amalgam, like graphic novel where it was Doctor Doom and the Joker versus, X, Y, and Z from, both sides of Marvel and DC.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Those crossovers are always so appealing for comic fans, because it's a big what if.
Yeah, like the Treasury edition with, Batman fighting Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as a fan of both those characters, I call bullshit. There's no way that Batman knocked out the Hulk.
Isn't that the thing with Batman, though, is he always has a contingency? He always finds a way.
Yeah, but, I mean, he knocked the air out of Hulk with a body blow.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, it's also, which era you're reading. Is it Batman, or is it basically Bat God? Because he goes a little crazy.
Oh, no, but this, that Treasury book came out back in the 70s. So,
yeah, that's true.
So that was back when, Batman used to get his ass kicked like his name was Daredevil.
Right.
And, because Daredevil's Marvel's punching bag. So I'm like, but there's perfect runs in like just about every title. Like, if I think hey, we'll give you any issues of Fantastic Four you want to read for free. I go, okay, give me all the issues John Byrne wrote. Because that was basically, to me, outside of, Lee and Kirby back in the golden days, the beginning of that run, semi, modern bronze, stuff when I was growing up, his run on Fantastic Four is, for that title is equivalent to Claremont's run on the X-Men. They were both, you can pick like certain things apart here and there, but I mean, as far as anything past, present, and future, those are probably like the best writers for each of those series at that time.
Yeah, okay.
Unless, of course, you listen to Neil Adams tell you how he saved the X-Men.
I do like Neil Adams, but
it's a true story. But and I actually got to talk to him back in 2019. I met him. I was covering a convention for Outright Geekery, and I got to meet like a whole bunch of people. I was just like, wow, I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, got in for free on a press pass all weekend, and I got to talk to Neil, and I thanked him for his work because I grew up on, I came in the end of his run and pretty much kind of like the beginning of Jim Apato's run when Jim took Batman titles over from Neil. So, sometimes you go into like a 5 and dime shop and they'd have like older issues like in the back of like the magazine rack, not on the spinner rack anymore. You get lucky to find those once in a while, but once I found my first comic book shop, I was 15, and I was just cutting school and walking through downtown going up the wrong way on a one-way street, but I was walking, so I guess it was okay. And there's a bunch of like insurance stores and a couple of restaurants across the street. And I walked past and I saw the place, and it didn't dawn on me till I got like a half block away. And then I like ran backwards and flung open the door and acted like a total moron. Is this really a comic book store? Oh, great. Was the response from the owner who later employed me. So, but it was a lot of fun. I got, over the years, I learned a lot about, characters that I didn't really know anything about. Like until I found that store, I had never heard of the X-Men before, because the only Marvel titles that ever appeared on the spinner rack at that store at the top of my street when I was a kid were, Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular, and, Marvel Team Up or something like that. I saw Angel in a Spider-Man Nova crossover, because I used to get some Novas when I was a kid there too, and I thought that character was going to go. Well, he puts on a helmet and he basically becomes like Superman. So, what's not to like?
Right.
But so obviously you're drawing a lot of influence from, growing up and, high school and middle school and, awkward situations,
yeah,
from the age of 12 up,
yeah, it's fun to dive back in, and you got to be really honest with yourself. And it's also fun to dive back in with a friend, because like I said, we never fell out of touch, but when we decided like, okay, let's go for this, let's do it for real. I mean, if 2 days go by and we don't talk on the phone for an hour, talking about a story or where he's at drawing the next one, where I'm at coloring the current one, or what's coming out and really, whatever's going on. Mm-hmm. It's almost weird now, where before we would talk, maybe once or twice a week or once every couple weeks if he got busy or I got busy. But it's cool because it kind of gives us an excuse to hang out the best we can, even though we're on opposite coasts of the country. But there's just been so much upside to like, data mining the past and talking to my long-term friend. I've known him 21 years, and just to dig into all the old stories and the stupid things we used to get into. And, looking back on it all, it's, at the time it was probably serious, but looking back, it's like, it's not.
Digging up old memories and then being like, how can I write this so I don't look like,
Yeah. And the characters do, they do stumble, they fall, they screw up a lot, because we did, and we're trying to be pretty honest about it. So
I like the little disclaimer that's inside the front cover of number 1.
Okay.
That was entertaining, and I read that, and it basically set the mood for the entire book.
Awesome. I'm glad that it came across that way.
It's like it was just, pretty much hilarious.
Thank you.
And
we thought that was one important, because it's based on our high school experience, and we obviously went to school with other people. And while there's no 1-to-1 ratio, like this character is this person. You can never be too careful, but I didn't want it to be legalese. I wanted it to do what you just said it did, that it kind of set the tone for the whole thing.
Yeah, you got a little bit of everybody in every character in there.
Mm-hmm.
The characters are very lively. Even the ones that are just moping around like this and really not doing anything and like afraid of their own shadow. It's like, yeah, that was me every year when I would start school until I, started to warm up to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the guy I do this with, my friend Mike, I think he did 17 different schools by the time he graduated high school. So he was constantly the new kid. So there's a lot of that kind of like, where do I go? What's my group? And, I wasn't like a social butterfly myself, even though I was in the same school district almost all the way through. So we kind of got pieces of both of that, with him always being the new guy, always having to start over. And I think that it's relatable, because even if you didn't move around as much as he did, everyone knows what it's like to be the new kid at one point, even if you're in the same district. Just going from middle school to high school is this big adjustment.
Oh yeah, that's just torture right there.
Yeah.
It's like, I just barely got my footing in middle school and now I have to go here?
Exactly, yeah. And the school that we went to at the time was so big, it had 2 separate high schools and it had a few different middle schools. So even if you were friends with someone in middle school, the next year, there was no guarantee you were going to be anywhere near that person.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I have a bunch of friends that, they grew up in like military families. So, every time their dad or mom got transferred to a different duty station, they'd have to pick up and move. And
yeah.
My cousin's husband just retired after 30 years in the Coast Guard. And the last house they were renting for him being stationed there, they bought, and they're like, yeah, we're not moving. We're just going to stay here for the rest of our lives.
Right. Yeah. Never moving again.
They've got like 2 young kids. Their son's like 12 and their daughter's like 8. So I'm like, yeah, stop moving around and, because it sucked, because I had moved around a few times when I was younger, and it's bad enough to go to a new school, but when you're going to go to a new school and, attempt to make friends all over again,
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, I wish he was here to speak on it more, but I know part of him is like, it really sucked moving around that much, but the other part is he got to experience a lot by the time he was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Met every different kind of person. He lived all over the country. He lived in other countries. Like he's had a lot of good life experience. And then he did the military after that, art school after that, police officer, SWAT team after that. So he's lived a life already. So there's a lot he can draw from to put into his art.
Most definitely. And it's got a great animated feel to it.
Oh, thank you.
Like it's a little quirky,
mm-hmm.
but it works perfectly with it.
Yeah, that was something that I always loved his art like that, because he can make a still picture with a Bic pen feel like it's alive. This is better than Bic pen drawings, but I just love how it comes to life. And like, we'll kind of break the story together, and then I'll go off and write the script, and then we go over the script together. And maybe this scene drags on too long. Let's chop it here. Oh, we could fit a joke in here. Oh, we made this joke back here. Let's do a call back there. So I kind of say we're both the writers. I mean, I physically do the writing and format it, but, we're going over it so many times. But when I write it, it's only just, black words on a white page. And then he does the outlines, penciling and inking. So he adds so much life and so much character and a lot of humor that wasn't necessarily in the script. Some of it was, some of the physical humor was, but some of it he just comes up with on the fly and gets it in there. And it really adds a whole other dimension to the comic, which obviously that's the whole point. It's a comic book. It's a visual medium.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can almost hear in certain scenes in that first issue, you can almost hear a couple of girls rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I've been there.
Yep.
I remember that when I thought, I'd say something to a girl at school and thought I was cool for about 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, this joke's gonna land, and no.
And then realize that the entire cafeteria is standing up, staring at me and laughing hysterically.
Yep. We get into all that.
And I'm like, and it was, those moments back then when you would do like one thing and it would ruin you for the entire school year.
Yes, that's something we're really trying to hit on, is that at that age, every last thing feels so incredibly monumental.
Mm-hmm.
And now, 20 years removed, you look back and it's like, man, I used to get so nervous about, I wish that was my biggest problem. Like, it's so much easier.
Yeah, really.
So we're kind of trying to tell young readers, like, hang in there. This is not the end of the world, without trying to downplay it, because it does feel big to them. So we don't want to, make light of it, be like, you don't have any problems, get over it. But, kind of give words of encouragement in a funny way.
Yeah, to help the awkward years along, and it's still, and it's fun for, it's fun for all ages, because the same like young teenager that could be reading this and enjoying it and laughing at somebody that's in the same situation as they were like 2 days ago.
Yep.
And they can loosen up about it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
That same kid's parents could kind of like sneak into his room when they hear him snoring and pick up a couple of his comics and go out in the other room and, read them and get a good chuckle out of it and, enjoy, and then try to sneak them back in and remember exactly where they took them from.
Right. Yeah. We're kind of hitting both markets or both audiences. You get the nostalgia hit and you get the I'm there right now hit.
Yeah. So it's a great combination, all around for what you guys are doing. Now, your 4th issue is being released this week?
Came out yesterday, yeah.
Came out yesterday. Now, you guys are just all self-published?
Yep, right now we're all self-published. We cut the story up into chapters, and every chapter is a season. So chapter 1 is fall of most of the characters' freshman year. A couple of them are sophomores. So that'll take them through fall into winter, and then chapter 2 will be 6 issues, same characters and everything, but it's going to be winter. And so 4 chapters will be the school year. We're going to take them all the way through high school. And once we have 7 issues for the first chapter, just because there was a lot of groundwork in that first issue. We have a lot of main characters. We're going to put them together in a trade and load it up with extra drawings, explanations, how we do things. It's kind of like when you buy a special edition DVD and you get all that extra stuff that we're going to run a Kickstarter campaign for.
Okay. I was going to ask, I'm like, I don't remember hearing about this book like on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. And I'm in like so many groups that are, completely like, pushing indie comics right now. Cause who knows if their local shops are going to, get their DC shipment from this company, and now Marvel left Diamond and they went with another company. And
yeah, we went back and forth a lot. Like, do we put it out ourselves? Do we try Kickstarter, this and that? But neither of us have ever done anything in comics before. So we kind of wanted to earn that audience trust before we went into it. And I don't mean that to disparage anyone who jumped to Kickstarter. If that worked for you, that's awesome. And it's probably an easier path when it does work out. But we figured we can do it. So let's do it and try to build that audience. And then by the time we get to Kickstarter, we have 7 issues. So if someone's just discovering it and they like it, they can, wade in pretty deep before reading one and done.
Now, have you guys ever thought, because you just released the 4th issue, have you ever thought about going back and reformatting the issues to try to build a bigger base off of like, a webtoons or anything like that?
I am familiar with webtoons, but we haven't had a lot of conversations about cutting it up any different to put it on. One thing we talked about doing is when issue 5 comes out, because then we're getting kind of close to the trade, kind of close to the end of the chapter, we're going to switch our first issue, the digital version, to be pay what you want. Like you could just get it for free if you wanted to, or if you want to throw us a buck or two, we'd appreciate it, whatever it is. But just to try to get more readers in, because we're not doing this to, try to make a ton of money. It's comics. You don't really make a ton of money. Most people don't. That was never what it was about. We just want to tell our story, and we hope people enjoy it.
Now, I have to ask this question. Are you guys a member of the Comic Related Madness on Facebook?
Neither of us really do a whole lot with social media. I actually had all of my social media stuff deactivated for a long time until the comic was coming out, and then I turned it back on so that I could, post on social media to promote the comic book. But I don't really use it personally. I just try to get the comic out there. That's how I got in touch with you, is through Facebook. So I try to use it for networking and things like that, but I try not to fall down the rabbit hole.
Well, Comic Related Madness is a group of over 2,500 people now that are all active and, comic supporters and indie backers. It's just just a good place to, promote the book. And every month, the guy that started that group does a virtual con online where you can, just pay attention to the posts, and he'll put up a post for people to sign up and get like a time slot, either like on a Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, that's awesome. When you said Comic Related Madness, I didn't know you meant that was the literal name of a group. I thought you were saying there was a lot of crazy stuff going on social media in the comics world. So that's how unaware I was.
There is, I'll admit it. I'm kind of an ass. Somebody put up the first appearance of Lobo and Omega Men, and yelling in all caps, "Make me an offer." So I put $1, just thinking that famous line from the original RoboCop movie, "I'll buy that for $1." And then he called me a nasty word, and then another person came in right after me and said, $1.01. And he called them even worse words. And it kept going on and on and on and on until it basically turned into some kind of like auction thing. I think he deactivated his page because he was just,
He opened a can of worms.
Yeah. So it's like, look, if you put up something and you're like, "Make me an offer," that just means that you want to dig in and, overcharge for a book that's not worth it.
Right.
I'm like, I'll make posts, through my Instagram. I'll, post like, a dozen pictures or so, and then just put "for sale, DM me." And it'll be the same post on my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook. And if somebody reaches out to me, I'll tell them the price. I'll just flip the book over. It's got like a sticky note on the back with a number, and I'll DM them that picture, and they'll either say yes, no, make me an offer, or, "Oh, thanks, but no thanks." And
yeah,
okay, see ya.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
I don't put up anything like that. And a lot of times, if I'm making a sales post, all the books have sticky notes on them for the price that I'm asking.
Good, yeah.
And I always put up, priced as is, OBO. If I put up a $200 book, don't offer me like $20.
Right.
And then say, "Well, I'll give you the 20 for it, but you have to guarantee me it's going to be a 9.8 when it comes back." And I'm like, why would I sell you a book for, I had somebody wanted to buy my Teen Titans 12 first appearance of Batman Who Laughs There, or as he's better known in, overseas in England as Judge Death. Offered me like $100 for the book when they were selling for almost $200 at that point. But he wanted me to guarantee him it was going to be a 9.8 because the CGC 9.8 of that book at that time was selling for a little over $2,000. I go, well, if it is a guaranteed 9.8, I'm going to send it in and get that money myself.
Yeah, really.
I go, if it's got a little bit of spine roll, guess what? Any book that you buy off of anybody else, or even your own like local comic shop, you should self-press. Like, if it's a series that you love and you want it to look great for the rest of your life, after you finish reading it, put it in your press and like don't turn the press on, but just pull and lock it down between a couple pieces of cardboard and leave it there for about a day. And, it'll be flat as a piece of driftwood. And you always, anything you want to send in, you always want to press.
That makes sense.
And I know a lot of creators that actually when they do their orders, as soon as they get their first run of books in, if they've only done one cover, they'll send like 3 or 4 copies into CGC. Because then, when people that are into the graded books, they'll see, a title that they've never heard of before. Like all of a sudden there's like, 3 or 4 9.8s of this brand new number 1 book they've never heard of, to hopefully garner some support for it. And a lot of people are willing to pay for that graded book. It's just an idea.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Obviously, I'm aware of what you're talking about. It's just a whole new world for me. For me, comics is always, I get it, I read it, I give it to someone else to read, or it stays in a long box, and every few years I go through and read it again, or now they're just buried in the closet.
Yeah, mine are kind of like all over, because as soon as WandaVision finished and the news of that West Coast Avengers 45, the first White Vision, started blowing up, and they're like, the book's selling for over $100. So I started going through all my boxes, like about 150 of them. And I still haven't found it yet.
No.
And I know I bought all 4 issues. I think I paid $2 for like all 4 issues on a sale. And so I haven't come across them yet. And I know what's going to happen. It's going to be in the very last box I look in.
Yeah, of course.
It's going to be right there. I'm going to be like, and then by the time I find it, nobody's going to be interested in that type.
Yeah, you got to hit it while the iron's hot.
Mm-hmm. But so this book just came out. Where can people get this from?
Socialstudiescomic.com would be the best place for it. We have a store set up there where you can buy the print or the digital or a bundle of the two. And it's also on Comixology. Comixology is a little behind our release because our approval process takes so long. But we're on there. We're working on getting on Comixology Unlimited, but that's even harder.
Yeah, I know.
So we're working on that still, but it is on Comixology. And we're also, I think just the first issue cleared so far, even though we submit them all as they come out. indieplanet.com, which is a indie comic storefront. But socialstudiescomic.com is your best bet. And then if you have any questions, it's a direct line to me. So we have some shirts and stuff on there too.
Oh yeah, show up the shirt.
Yeah. We go through Redbubble, which is funny because I actually had a t-shirt printing business from like 2011, and then COVID was like the final nail in that coffin. Mm-hmm. And then 6 months after we sold all the machinery and got out of it, the comic came out, and I was like, I really wish I was printing my own shirts, making my own stickers, but timing.
Now I've heard of a bunch of them. Where's Redbubble out of, and how do they compare price and quality wise to some of these other storefronts like Teespring and whatnot?
I'm not sure where they're out of, but price and quality to me seems pretty much exactly the same as Teespring. TeePublic, I've also ordered stuff from before. They have a lot of options, which is why I went with them. Like my shirt fits way different than my friend, even though we're almost the same size. For example, my wife has a hard time finding ones that she likes to fit on, and they use not just like Gildan, which Gildan's a fine, sturdy shirt, but you could have the option for something a lot softer, a nicer feel, which I prefer, especially because if we ever get Comic-Cons back, I'd like to go and try to meet people at a convention for the comic book, and I want to wear my own stuff, show it off. So I want it to be nice, comfortable, and
get like those Hanes 50/50 shirts.
Yeah, or even like the canvas stuff is pretty nice.
And
I'm not sure how it equates money wise.
oh, you know that Brian Wayne guy too?
Hey, yeah.
What's up, Brian?
Yeah, we talked to him just a few weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, we're on the same podcast network too.
Is that the NSC thing?
Yeah.
It's funny because we weren't working with Inked Marketing when I first reached out to you about coming on. And as of 2 days ago, we are. So,
well, this is two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Because so, that's pretty good. Plus, Brian and I'm in the same like audio podcast network. He's in agerradio.org, where you can subscribe to the audio version and download them. So this will be on there after we finish. I'll download the audio, and then I will get you the link via Facebook for that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Because a lot of people just, they'll put their phone onto Spotify and they'll just like listen to like a podcast while they're stuck in ridiculous traffic on their way to work or something.
Yeah.
Just to listen to something different because, they know it's going to be like the same 7 songs. They're either going to be stuck listening to Cardi B or Led Zeppelin. I would always choose Led Zeppelin, by the way.
Yeah.
But when you've got all the Led Zeppelin songs like playing in your head, and you own the whole library on CD and vinyl, you're like, oh, I can listen to this anytime. I want to listen to something different.
Exactly. Yeah. Always something. And there's so much to listen to, so you always want something different.
Oh yeah. Brian says, glad you're on board with 8.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Welcome to the family.
We're looking forward to it. I was trying to do a lot of the marketing myself because it's like, well, I do web design as a day job, and I know the basics of online marketing, how to set things up properly, things like that. But it's just so much work, work, and then working on the comic, promoting the comic. Like, it's just so much. It's like, let's get somebody who specializes to kind of help us get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I do more work now, just podcasting 5 days a week than I did before I was in a wheelchair, working like 9-hour days.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, and sometimes I would work like 14-hour days because sometimes I'd have to pull like a double shift on a Sunday.
Yeah, it is. It's a labor of love for sure. Podcasting and comics.
Yeah. And I'm podcasting about comics.
There you go. You got both.
Kevin has a pretty great success rate. He makes it really easy.
Yeah, Kevin is from Inked Marketing for people who are just listening, maybe don't know, but he's really good to talk to. We had a couple really long conversations with him before we signed on, and it's not like we doubted him or anything. It's just, this is a whole new world to us. I make websites look pretty. My partner is a cop, so marketing is not our world.
Yeah, marketing's never fun. Like if I was to do a book, I'd have to have somebody else do my marketing, because there's only so many people I can smile at in a day.
Yeah.
And not want to run over in my wheelchair. And I'm just like, no, I can't. I love comics. I've loved comics my whole life, and it's just, and now kids are spoiled because every TV show is a comic book. Every movie is a comic book.
Yep.
Take the remote and try to find a show that's not comic book related.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I found this movie called Bulletproof Monk. Comic book. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. So every once in a while, a friend of mine will text me and be like, we were going to watch this. Is this a comic book too? And I'm like, hold on. I'll look at it and be like, they made a comic book out of it after the show was successful.
One way or the other, it ends up being a comic book.
Just like, a friend of mine was asking me, he goes, oh, I was looking and I saw that there's a Big Trouble in Little China comic book. I go, yeah, there is. And I found it to be obnoxiously terrible.
That property does really lend itself to being a comic book, though.
Oh yeah. He goes, well, there's another one too called Old Man Jack. I go, oh no. They have the Marvel credo in them. And they go, what's that mean? I go, well, Old Man Logan was a huge success for him, so then they started putting Old Man in front of every other character to make a new series out of it. He goes, so have you read that? I go, I read a quarter of an issue and then I had to put it down, and I just.
No, yeah.
It was poorly written, and it was too Steven Universe for me, shall we say.
Okay, I think I know what you're saying.
It's like I like silly stuff. Like I loved the Powerpuff Girls cartoon, Johnny Bravo, Courage the Cowardly Dog. And I mean, I was in my mid-20s when that stuff came out.
Yep.
Will the social studies story stop at high school graduation, or is there a possibility of some college adventures?
Well, thanks for watching again, Mark. We actually do have a lot of plans to continue it on, and we're thinking it might be like a sequel series, or we'll just continue it with whatever. But as it is now, we have 103 issues outlined, I think was our final tally to get them through high school. But we did have ideas where we know where certain characters would go, whether it's military, college, getting kicked out of a college, coming back home. So we do have some stuff like that always cooking. And if we ever come up with an idea we like for that timeline, it still makes its way to our living outline document where we keep all of our ideas.
Wow. And thank you for putting me in your book, because I was that kid that got kicked out of college and sent home. Something about drinking, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, I didn't think college was much else.
Yeah, really.
Go to a couple classes and then, figure out which one of your friends was working at one of the bars off campus and, taking a keg back to the frat house. I thought that was, economics 101. Too
many 80s college movies.
Yeah. Find beer money and go. I finally moved out of the house and had people stop yelling at me, and then realized I just paid for different people to yell at me.
Right. He went somewhere else to get yelled at.
I'm like, what the hell is this? I go, at least if I went into the military, I would have had a pension out of it.
Yeah, that's true.
So 103 issues.
I think that's the number that we have on our outline now, because we have the 4 seasons for every year, 4 years of high school, and then we kind of had an idea to do a kind of like a bookended one where they sit down with their guidance counselor in their senior year and they say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So we've kind of wanted to give like a little primer as to, hey, take Roy's character, and this is kind of where he sees his life going, which would kind of be a preview of what could come if, when we continue it, kind of like how TV shows do like a backdoor pilot. Well, they introduce a new concept in a popular show, and then that becomes a show, and they're just trying to grab some of that audience. That was kind of our idea, even though it would still be us. It's not like we're, sending our audience anywhere else.
It just 103 issues makes high school sound so long. I'm like, man, I thought it was long when I went. 103 issues. Oh my God.
It's a quick read though, right?
Yeah, it was. I flipped through the pages first to get like a feel for his art and everything. And once that was, and I sat down and I read it, from cover to cover, read the first issue from cover to cover, and I was like, I go, okay, I'm digging this. It was a very fun read to go through, and I think everybody will like it.
Awesome. We try to keep the energy up. We write it like it is animated. We write it like a sitcom where it has the cartoon zaniness and stuff, but it's still characters with feelings, and it's not just slapsticky for the sake of it. So I think that helps kind of keep you engaged and keep you going, because you are following a plot, and yes, it's silly and funny, which if we wanted to nail, but I think that helps with it moving on.
And let's get the website up there in the chat. There we go.
I wish the other links worked for you, because they the first one does a lot of heavy lifting introducing the characters. So in number 2, we can just kind of coast. Now you know who they are. Let's get into it. Let's have them get into trouble.
Yeah, it might work. It might work on my gaming station, but like anything on my tablet, anything over like, over 2, it was like, and then ask if I wanted to download it anyhow. I go, oh yeah. And it just, no.
I'll resave them as a smaller size PDF for tablets and stuff, and I'll resend them to you.
Yeah, let me scroll down and see if this will work on this computer.
It should. I also like sending at least the first 2, because the first one takes place almost entirely either in the school or in the mall, where you have like the harsh, bright lighting. Number 2, they're outside a lot at nighttime, so you get a whole different look.
Yeah, really. Denied. Google Drive for viruses. Oh yeah, it's way too big. It's issue 2 is 138 megabytes.
Okay, yeah, I'll save a smaller version, and now I know I'll be sending it to everybody, because you're probably not the only one who had the problem.
Well, it seems to be downloading it on my computer. There, obviously, right. Even with my extended memory on my chip in my tablet, there wasn't enough room, because it is so big.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. I can still resend it if you want, and you can get it on your tablet.
Let's see. And no.
No, it's not working?
No, it's working.
Okay.
Because nope, that's the wrong one. I hate it when there's more than one name. It automatically goes to the wrong one. How about this? There it is. There's the cover of number 2. Homecoming. Good, I can read that later.
Yeah, there you go.
What kind of tiers do you have set up on the website? Do you have like bundles, like preset bundles already?
That's something that I was tossing around, and a lot of people have requested it, which I do appreciate the feedback, and I try to get back to everybody. Right now, it's just you want issue 1, you buy it, you pick print or digital, or you can get print and digital, and it'll knock a couple bucks off if you bought them separately. And if you want 2, you have to go into 2, 3. It's not like buy chapter 1 yet. I wanted to do a subscription where you could sign up for X amount of dollars, whatever it would be a month, and I would either mail it to you or a cheaper subscription to just get the download the day it came out. But the problem I had with the subscription was we're going to do 7 issues in a row, 1 per month, and then 2, maybe 3 months for the Kickstarter campaign for the trade before the next chapter starts. So I didn't want to be charging people the subscription rate when there's no book coming out. And I didn't want to have to cancel it and then tell them to rebuy it because that might turn people off. And I'm also worried now that we're on issue 4. If they buy a subscription, how do they get 7? And I would have to, from now on, 7 issues. It's a lot to track, which I guess is maybe a poor excuse. I don't know. I keep tossing it around in my head because I do the whole website thing too. I think what I'm going to do is when we're getting ready to release the 7th issue, we'll do a bundle of all of them, even though we have the trade coming out. The trade's going to have a lot of extra stuff in it too, so it'll be a little bit more money. But I'll put those both up there so people have the option. And then maybe starting in chapter 2, I'll start with a subscription because then it's a kind of a fresh start, a good jumping on point for people.
Yeah, I found from like all the Indiegogos and Kickstarters that I've seen that usually what they do is they'll run like a crowd fund for like the newest issue for when it's when it's going to come out. But setting up a Kickstarter is almost more work than making the actual book.
Yeah, that's why we're saving it for the trade, and then we'll keep putting out the issues ourselves. And if the first one goes well, then we'll do a trade for chapter 2, a trade for chapter 3. And then people who like to binge the stories, to use the TV term more, can just wait for the trade, get the trade, and then they have, the bigger books lined up.
Yeah, the trades are usually the bigger sellers. Their trades and graphic novels are like almost 70% of the comic book market.
That makes sense.
Because, everybody's used to binging stuff.
Yeah.
They don't want to, it's like, well, I could pay $5 for this book now and read this floppy and then have to wait another month until the next book comes out, slap down another $5 and read that. Or I can wait until the graphic or the trade comes out and I can slap down, $20, $25 for like 140 pages and sit down and just read the whole thing and throw it on my bookshelf after.
Right.
And
yeah.
It's not taking up this much room in a box.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is something that I've been kicking around. I got to find a nice, smooth, easy for the user solution to it.
So this one just came out yesterday, and it means you have another one coming out in another like 3.5 weeks.
Yep. One's coming out on the 1st of every month up until July. And then August, September, possibly October also. I've never done a Kickstarter campaign. That's why I'm a little iffy on the timeline. So if we need the full 3 months for Kickstarter, that's what we'll do. And then chapter 2 will start, which we already have. We're already working on the 3rd issue of the 2nd chapter. So
all the issues for the first chapter are like already done.
Yep.
You're just, waiting on like the 30-day release.
Yeah, we're waiting on the 30-day release, and that also buys us time to get the next chapter done. Because if we dumped them all at once and someone got really into them, which would be a great problem to have, and they're asking for more, it would take us a long time to get 6 more issues done. But
this way, you got X amount of issues all done in the bag ahead of time.
Yeah.
So you're actually working on, issue 3, chapter 2.
Yeah, we just released issue 4, and Mike's currently drawing issue 10, and I'm currently lettering issue 9.
Yeah, so you guys are way ahead of the stretch, which is good, because you work like a regular day job, and he works more than a regular day job. So
right. So then if something happens where we can't get anything done for a week or two, which we try our best not to, we have a little bit of buffer. We hate to burn up that buffer because it's so hard to gain back. But that was our plan. We also thought that, if we release issue 1 and we put a ton of time into marketing it, or now we're working with a marketing company, if we're paying them to market it and things are going good and we start to get a reader base, we don't want it to be 3 months before issue 2. And then maybe issue 3 is the month later, and then a couple months. We wanted to be nice and consistent for people.
Well, that's a good idea. I know a couple of publishers that they do Kickstarters, but they won't kickstart a book until the entire book is done.
Yeah,
like everything they've obviously writing takes quite a bit of time, but it's not as long as doing your layouts and your inks and colors and then lettering on top of that. Obviously all takes time, and if you've got somebody different for each department, you got to send that file to like the next guy and to the next person and to the next person,
right? Yeah
until like a completed file makes its way back to the publisher, and then then the publisher is in the meantime, while everybody else is doing that, he's planning out and setting up the whole Kickstarter ready for launch. So when he gets that completed file back, he'll look through it, he'll send it off to the printer and get, a couple of samples set back. So everything, looks the way he wants it to in the book. And as long as he gives it the thumbs up, then he'll send in, he'll send payment to the printer even before starting the Kickstarter. And then once the Kickstarter finishes, everything's there. All they got to do is box up, all the, the books and all the extra goodies, dare I say bookmarks. And I used to complain about the bookmarks, but now I'm like reading like 12 different books at the same time. Trades, omnibus, even a couple like, proper books. There's only a picture on the cover, nothing but words inside. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's like, what do my daughter's like, what are you doing? I go, reading a book. That's not a comic. I go, I know, I'm scared. She's like,
trying something new.
She's like, rolls her out, she's going to be 13 in a couple months, 13 going on 30.
Yeah.
So she rolls her eyes in the back of the head. You're so stupid. Back into her room on her iPad. I go,
yeah.
At least Dad's reading.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, par for the course.
Yeah.
Every time somebody goes, how old's your daughter now? I go, she's going to be 13. It's always followed by, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm like, why? Oh, you'll find out. Like, oh,
getting into that fun age.
Oh God, it's crazy. She was in the comics for a while, and I was in a coma back in 2016 for like a few months, and then I was in rehab for almost 3 years. Like I couldn't move my legs or stand or anything for close to a year.
Sorry to hear that.
And it all worked out for the best. I'm lazy and I'm in a motorized wheelchair. What else could you ask for?
Silver lining, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah. You gotta, be, get what you get and don't get upset kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just wish I had a real horn instead of one that just goes, peek, peek. I want one of those like old fashioned truck horns on it,
Yeah, there you go.
I'll find a way to hook one up. Scare the people in my building going down the hallway when they hear. Arrgh! So you've got these coming out every month.
Yep.
You guys are so far ahead of the curve on everything right now.
Well, thank you. Trying to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few people that I've talked to that actually have, a good hit, 3 to 4 books at least minimum, already, all set, all done and ready to go. And, it's like, well, this is chapter 1. How many books? This many books. What are you working on? You go, we're like halfway through chapter 2. Well, so you guys started like at least a year ago on this?
Yeah, I think it was November 2019. We started coloring issue 1. I remember because we actually originally had someone else who was going to do the coloring because I never colored a comic before. I didn't think I had the chops. A really good artist we know. His name's actually Andrew DeVal. You can look him up on Instagram. I don't think he's too active right now, but he goes through spurts where he posts a lot of art. He's really good. And he did this awesome thing for me where he said, this book is so personal to you guys. Why don't we get on, I think it was Google Hangouts we used where we could do some screen sharing. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and I'll just teach you how to color a comic. So he took time out of his own day and just kind of gave me a crash course on how to color comics. And I went from not doing it all to coloring our first issue inside of like a month of learning. So huge shout out to Andrew for the help because I love that I'm doing it. I love that I can participate in the art of it. And as much as it would have been cool to work with him because I love his art, it's very cool to just, here's a thing made by, just a friend and I were the only 2 people in it.
And it's like, Andrew, if you want to teach somebody else how to color. I mean, I got a box of Crayolas, but, that's about it.
Yeah.
I have a good friend that's a colorist too, who's always working. He's a, like most guys in the business, you're basically freestyling. You put your name out there and people contact you. This is the project, and please let me know if you're interested in it, if you have the time to do it. And you look at it, and it's either something that you dig, that you'd really like to get your hands on, or it's like, no, and you pass it up and go on to the next thing.
Yeah. Thinking of a professional colorist who like makes their living coloring books, working with a lot of different people. I don't know how they find the time because just to do one, like I could not take on a second. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time.
Oh yeah, it's like it's coloring a book. So what? Really?
Yeah.
I go, it's not like a coloring book,
right?
Where you can leave 90% of the pages. You can just leave all white and color the principal. Everything has to be colored
and shaded and lighting effects and everything.
I mean, even if they're standing in snow, you have to shade the snow.
Yeah.
Oh. Now I'm thinking about it. I go, never mind, Andrew. That just sounds like too much work.
It's a lot of work, so much so that after I got done with the first book, I sent him, copies of the colored pages and thanked him for helping me out. And I said, but I got to be doing something wrong because this can be anywhere from 2.5 to 4 hours on a single page. And he's like, that's about average. You got it. And I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. So you don't want to make too many of the books 64 pages. So.
Yeah, some of them in the beginning here are a little long, like in the 30s. We want to give people good value for dollar. We don't pay a ton of attention to the page count. We just try to get our story out. But we realized if every book comes out 35 pages instead of 25 pages, every third book we could have gotten one, an extra one done. So we're not trying to shortchange the story by any means, but we're a little bit more conscious of it. We had some script issues in the beginning where they were too short, and then we'd cram 2 stories together. Then it was too long, so we had to kind of take it back to basics and start over. Keep the ideas, but reconstruct them.
Yeah, you always want to kind of like leave an issue of any given book with, on the edge, teetering on the edge of the cliff, where people just like, and then they flip that last page and realize that they just read the last page.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're like, they're fiending for like the next issue now.
Yeah. Doing a comedy, hopefully we get that across, because like I said, we write it like a sitcom. So at the end of the episode, it's kind of like the end of the end of the issue is kind of like the end of an episode, where the stories within that are pretty much tied up. The characters will carry over and repercussions and everything. Of course, it's ongoing, but you'd get the full thing in one issue. So you could read issue 3 without having read 1 or 2, and you might miss a couple small things. I think issue 4 is the first one where if you don't read issue 3, you'll be able to follow it. You'll be able to put it together, but it's all set up in the prior issue.
Yeah, well, you kind of like want to read all of them. Like,
yeah, I would hope.
Like, I've bought books where I've actually missed, I bought series where I actually missed like the first couple of books, figuring, well, the store will reorder them for me and I'll get them in a couple of weeks. And then like a month and a half goes by and Diamond just keeps canceling the order. Putting it back in, and Diamond just keeps canceling the order. Then we found out like years later that Diamond would keep canceling local comic shop orders because Next Planet Over was part of them, and we're in the same warehouse building, and they would be like, but we don't have any orders for this now, granted, but in case we do, we want you to hold like 50 issues of this X-Men book, and we want you to hold like 3 pallets of Silver and Modern Age bags and boards. Then all of a sudden, all these other like mom and pop shops can't get any supplies, can't get this title, can't get that title, because the store wants to make sure that they have plenty on retainer in case they get a big order in.
No.
So it was, it was a little crazy. And now, from what I'm hearing, a lot of stores can't get supplies in to save their life, because when Diamond shut down, so did the production of all the companies making the bags and boards, because there was no way to ship any without them, and a lot of the other routes of shipping went down, and they closed down their own factories for like a couple of months during that. So now they're like 6 months to a year behind on production.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, everything got so far delayed and pushed back, and then Diamond had a couple big hits with first DC leaving and now Marvel. So
yeah, I'm like, what are they going to do now?
Yeah, because they went from being basically a monopoly. Like, if you wanted new comics, it was Diamond. Like, that was kind of the end of it. And now that's not the case at all.
Now it has gone back to the way it was in the late 90s, where you had to order your Marvel comics through Marvel. You had to order your DC through a DC rep. And then, like, any independent stuff, you had to order, like, independently. So it would cost you, you were paying more in shipping than you were for books.
Right. Plus your time to go to 5 different sources.
And yeah, you'd have to, you'd have to go through like 5 or 6 different order forms. And there was no way for you to get like, any small press or indie stuff unless you bought direct from them. So, it was a little crazy, and it's heading back there. The problem is now is, they're trying to raise the price higher and higher.
Well, that's the hard thing too. And we kind of came across that where we're trying to figure out what to charge for our book. And while money was never the main motivating factor, it'd be nice to not lose money at a point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, we can't really charge more than $5 because that's what the big guys charge. And not to get into like the gross money side of things, but at $5, you know, we're not profiting really. So it's a tough balance to do where we want it to be cheap enough that people can get it, but we have to pay for it to be printed at the same time. So I see why everything's getting more expensive. It's just a shame.
Yeah, it's, you know, a lot of people are that don't want to, like, I am not a fan of digital comics whatsoever. You know, I like to hold the book in my hand and, you know, because it's a whole different experience.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, they're like, well, with digital comics, it's not going to take up any space in your house. I go, yeah, but if somebody hacks my account, I've lost everything.
It is a totally different thing doing it digital. We wanted to give both print and digital just have the option, and we also figured with us not having a name in comics, you know, the digital copy is $3. You get it instantly. Try it out. You know, you'll spend more than that getting coffee. So,
well, yeah, that's true. You know, I don't go out for coffee anymore. But you know,
well, yeah, but you know what I mean, though.
You know, a week's worth of coffee is like, you know, a nice big jar of coffee for me. You know, I don't drink anymore. You know, because college is long since over, and you know, even though I'm Irish, I can't afford to drink the good whiskey and Guinness, so I will just drink coffee instead. So, you know, I like the dark roast, so I'll buy like a can of dark roast, you know, French vanilla or whatever, and within like 5 days, that can is gone.
Yeah.
And if there's that virtual con that I was telling you about called CromCon, if it's a weekend with that, I need two of those because I'm going to go through one of those cans just on the weekend. They usually do a kickoff show like on a Friday. They'll go like 8 to midnight on a Friday, if not later, and then Saturday and Sunday is noon to midnight both days.
Wow.
And
yeah.
you know, this past time Comcast kept I had like terrible storms, so my Wi-Fi was coming in, going out, coming in, going out. You know, power outages and all. So I'm like, eventually I just gave up and went to sleep. But you know, I put in a good like 9 hours this time around.
That's a long time sitting in front of a computer. Yeah, it's
that's why I'm glad I have my tablet. So I'll sit over here for, I don't know, like 6-7 hours, and I'll be like, I'm going for more coffee, and then I'll just, you know, boot myself out of the stream, make a big tumbler of coffee, go sit in my recliner, grab my tablet, and go bump 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 bump. Hi, I'm back.
Yeah,
hey.
Exactly.
I switched over to the tablet, so when this battery dies, I'm probably just going to go to sleep. So make sure you let me know if your power's going out, because I don't want to end the stream because I fell asleep.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, but there's all kinds of avenues for getting stuff out there. The big thing with you guys self-publishing is you want to make it so you're basically not reaching into your pocket for the money.
Yeah, eventually we knew that was going to be the case for a while, which we're okay with. It's not, you know, it's not too terribly expensive. You know, we're just doing small orders, and then when they start to run low, just another small order. But ideally, yeah, we'd like it if the comic one issue paid for the next and the next and the next. And
yeah, because I know it's tough because I was talking to Sam Quentin, who's the creator of 47 Furious Tales, which is a story of the 47 Ronin, but told through anamorphic animals, you know, kind of like the turtles and stuff.
Yeah.
And when he did his first crowdfunder, he didn't order enough books and ran out and had to, like, you know, people had to wait to get their books in. So on his second issue, he ordered like over 4,000 copies.
Wow.
And sadly, it's a ton of money out of your pocket when you do it that way. But in the long run, on the backside of that, the discounts you get for ordering larger numbers of a print run usually end up paying for themselves like within a few months if you're pushing the book. And now,
Absolutely.
and now some of the small conventions are coming back too.
Yeah, we're gonna have to inventory up to do some of those because I'm in upstate New York and New England is right next door, and they have a ton of conventions when things are normal. So
yeah, hi next door.
are you Massachusetts? Because I see your Bruins hat.
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, sorry you're in New York. But yeah, it's we're not far from each other. Obviously, better than I do. How sadly it's not going on because of everything still up in arms. But
Yeah.
the largest show around these parts is actually New York Comic Con.
Yep.
And that's usually where the big two have their huge meeting. Well, with the big two used to have their huge diamond meeting. Will now just have their independent panels with their own people and dealers.
Yep.
And Boston falls like third in the Boston show falls like third in line to New York Comic Con, and the Rhode Island show is actually somewhere in between New York and Boston.
Yeah, I like the Rhode Island one a lot. We had a good time at New York Comic Con. I actually do a YouTube channel for So Wizard Podcast. They've been podcasting for years. We got to go to New York Comic Con 2019, and it was a great time. As far as bringing the comic there, I don't know what a table goes for, and I don't think I want to know. Yeah.
That's something where you pretty much want to if they allow it, they probably don't, because the more money a con makes, the more pardon my French, douchey they act.
Yeah.
Some shows you can go in and kind of like split like a couple of tables between like three groups.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So if you do like basically it's like the VFW halls and the smaller venues, which are better because those are actual true comic shows.
Right, you have people that are looking for comics. Yeah.
People are going there looking for comics and toys. Like you can't have a dealer floor at any place selling comics if there's no toy vendors in there.
Yep.
They're always going to show up, but you're going to get some good toy vendors, and then you're going to get people like on the third rate market with old G.I. Joes and Migos and classic Star Wars stuff, stuff from the 60s on through like the late 80s, so like original G.I. Joes through like G1 of Transformers and stuff like that. But people are there for older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to meet comic creators, and if there's comic creators there, they want they're probably going to want to buy a book from you and get it signed, and hopefully like follow you in the future. And
yeah, that's what we're hoping for, that kind of networking, meeting people face to face, being able to talk to them about it, show off the artwork. Yeah,
the virtual cons are great, but meeting people face to face is really the best way to do it.
Yeah.
We got to wrap things up here, but you can get a hold of Adam through socialstudiescomic.com, where you can order issues of the book, digital and physical.
Yep.
And find out more information. And is there a certain social media platform you like people to follow you on for the comic?
We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so follow us on whatever one you prefer. If you want to get a hold of me, Social Studies Comic does have the Facebook Messenger set up, but Twitter would probably be the best aside from that.
And it's Social Studies Comic on all three platforms?
Social Studies Comic on Facebook and Social Studies CB on Twitter because Social Studies Comic was too long.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. And all the socials are on the website too.
Okay, cool. So go to the website. You can follow them on all that social media. Stalk them around, buy the comic, check it out. It's a fun read. It's good for pretty much all ages. Anybody that's in middle school, anybody from middle school age on up, I think will dig it because it's dealing with their real world problems, and right. Everybody else, we will enjoy it, laughing back on days of yesteryear.
Absolutely, thank you.
So I want to thank you very much for taking the time and hanging out with us tonight. Like I said, as soon as we wrap this, I'm going to start downloading the audio, and it'll be up on ageofradio.org, and I will send you the links, and I will tag you in. There's a link for it for Facebook, and there's a link for it for Twitter, and I'll tag you in both.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, thanks everybody very much, and we will see you next week with a new episode of Creators Outlet. Good night, everybody.